Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is my great pleasure to share Cheryl with you today. And I will share my introduction to Cheryl as the introduction for you, in that when I met Cheryl, it was after a magical, mystical morning with my youngest son, walking on the beach, looking up around 70-something Street, and the environment was such, it was like someone had just landed here for the first time. There was magic in the air. And later that day, I walked into the store, walked up to this young lady, and we started to talk. And I never had done that in my life with anybody I didn't know, but Spirit was afoot. And so it was the beginning of our waking dream together as we shared stories, which is actually what our lives are. Our lives are the stories that we are living, that we sometimes are more conscious of than others. And that day, as I met Cheryl, I saw her lovely spirit for the first time at the end of her story that she shared with me. And so what Cheryl is to me is personification of somebody that walks the way that she is moved to live. She tries to inspire, uplift, and empower by her way of living, and by the stories that she shares, and by the people she attracts to be able to share those stories with, and vice versa. So today is going to be a magical, mystical experience of both song and word, and I give you Cheryl Bernath.
Okay, David did that great introduction. It was really sweet, honey. When we spoke together once at an Edgar Casey conference in Hopkinsville, and they interviewed me before we went to Hopkinsville, and I was really excited. They interviewed me by phone for like a half an hour for Hopkinsville, for the Hopkinsville Bee. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I'm going to have an article in the paper. So when we got to Hopkinsville, we looked everywhere for the paper, and different places. And we found the Hopkinsville Bee, and I had this big article with my picture, and I was so impressed with myself. And I started reading it, and it said, Cheryl Bernath, nationally renowned, and I was like, first of all, that was not what I said, but it sounds really cool, so I was excited. Nationally renowned dream interrupter. Spell check. Autocorrect strikes again. So, this was kind of God as your best friend, keeping your ego in check. So that's the first way that God speaks to you. So I'm going to tell you some stories. Okay, you want some stories? Yeah. All right. Now your inner child is jumping up and down because it's not going to be a heavy sermon and it's not going to be educational. Because I think stories are a really good way to connect people with their kind of inherent wisdom. And Jesus told stories. They called them parables. I don't know if Jesus called them parables. I suspect Jesus just called them stories, but I don't know. So my first story is called The Lost Word. The Lost Word. So the past couple of weeks, I have been on my computer and mainly avoiding working on my talk. And I keep getting this box that's popping up with this vaguely threatening message with big, bright red letters and lots of exclamation points. And because apparently if you want to take something seriously, if they want you to take it seriously, they put it in red lettering with lots of exclamation points. And it said that my word processing program, which is Word, was actually going to be disabled. Because apparently it said I hadn't paid for my subscription, or my subscription had run out. And so it sort of kept funneling me to this site where it said you could purchase Word for the low price of $99 a year. And I was kind of upset because, you know, I had bought it, so I really didn't understand. I bought it with the computer, and I was a little confused. But it said unless you had the key card number that they gave you when you bought it. So I kind of relaxed a little bit, and I did, in my infinite wisdom, I chose to sort of ignore this for, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, and it kept coming up. And because I knew I had my key card thing, and I felt confident that I could put my key card number in and we'd be good and everything, and I could write my talk and we'd be good. And this is where I gave you an ironic look, foreshadowing what was to come. So one day, I decide I'm going to go in and I'm going to fix the problem. I'm going to take care of it. And I have my little proof of purchase key card. And I actually have the account name and the password, which was a miracle. I don't know how many of you can find all your passwords and accounts. So I'm all ready. And I enter them. And the first time I do it, I'm feeling confident and I'm feeling really hopeful, and it goes through. And it goes directly to the site that I've seen before that says, you can renew this for a low price of $99 a year. And I'm like, but that's what I kept seeing before. So I'm really hopeful, so I just keep entering it, and I did it again, getting a little less hopeful each time. And I keep getting the same message, and somehow I feel like I've entered the movie Groundhog Day. I don't know how many of you remember that with Bill Murray, where he has to live the same day over and over. So the last time I enter it, this time it tells me there is no such account. Now, I just entered it 2 minutes ago and it recognized my account. But when I did it again, now I have no such account. So things are disappearing. And now I can feel my blood pressure starting to go up. And I try again, and there is no such account. So at this point, I get the bright idea of restarting my computer, because that's what you do when things go wrong. You finally restart your computer. And I take a deep breath, and I try again, and I get the same message. So finally, I scroll to the bottom of the page. And here I'm kind of hearing that screechy music that you hear in horror movies, that wee, 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 before somebody gets killed. And I hit the thing that says, contact us, which sounds so cheerful. And now it's holding the carrot stick out in front of me, okay? Choose how you would like to contact us. Number 1, by phone. Number 2, leave your number, and we will contact you back shortly. Number 3, chat online with a representative. And number 4, jump out the window and let your next of kin contact us in the manner of any of the first 3 choices. So I decide, being a people person, that I'd really like to talk to somebody rather than chat online. Although I know if I talk to somebody, I probably am not going to be able to understand them, because normally you get somebody in India and they speak really good English, but I can't even watch Downton Abbey without having the closed captioning or rewinding the DVR a number of times because of the accents. So I hit the box where you enter your phone number, and I think, well, you know, I'll try this. And I get a drop-down box, and it asks what country I'm in. And I think, well, this is simple, so I hit US. And it takes it, and I go back and I start to put my phone number in, and I get a drop-down box, and it says, what country are you in? And I say US, and it goes back up, and I try to enter my number, and a drop-down box comes back. So here I am, I'm going in circles, and going around in these circles. So finally, I'm a hopeless optimist. I try this about 5 times or so before I admit that they probably don't want to talk to people. They probably don't want you to contact them online. So I hit the chat with us box. Now, chat really doesn't mean chat anymore, does it? It means type back and forth with us. So I hit the type back and forth with us box, and a little flashing message comes up that says, you are 40th in line. Yeah, that exactly my response. So kind of decided if I was going to actually sit there and wait while they explained through maybe 40 people the kind of stuff that I was getting. But I decided to practice patience, so I sat. And really, my heart is starting to pound at this point. I'm losing my patience a little bit, but it's actually going pretty fast. And it only took like about 5 minutes, and I was really surprised. And I'm inordinately excited now because I'm down to like number 2. And then number 1 comes up, and I know I'm next in line. And my computer monitor goes black. And I went, okay, what just happened? Did they disconnect me? What just happened? So I start fiddling around with the cord on the computer monitor and found out that the computer chose that particular time for the cord to go bad. Right when I was at number 1. I was the next in line, and I'm screaming, no, in my head. So I'm trying to troubleshoot before I lose my place in line, which I don't know how long they wait for you. So I'm playing with the cord, and every time I just touch it, the light comes on, and then I let go and it goes off. So I finally found that I can push it up inside, and I've got to hold it at a very particular angle, and my screen comes back on, and I'm still number 1. But I have to hold this. And I'm like this, holding my monitor cord in. And so I've got a message, and you know, normally I can type pretty well, but usually I use both hands. And I am right-handed. So I'm holding, and I chose to use my right hand to mess with the cord. This was not a good choice. So I'm holding the cord up, and I get this person on the line, and he sounds pretty cheerful, and he asks how I'm doing today. Okay, I don't say hello. His name is Santosh, and I'm not feeling particularly cheerful at this point. And so I type kind of brusquely, I have lost use of a word, and I have a keycard number, but it won't let me have it back, very frustrated. He says cheerfully, I can help you with that. Would you please enter your 16-digit keycard number? Well, I've got my little card already, and I'm holding the cord up in the thing, and my arm's starting to get tired. And I forgot that the key card, the numbers are about this big. So last time I entered them, I had a magnifying glass, but now I don't have another hand to hold the magnifying glass. And so I get a magnifying glass, and it's in kind of a little case thing where it pops out, and it's about this thick. So I'm trying to figure out how to read this and type with my left hand at the same time, so I put it in my mouth. And I've got it kind of down on a table here, and I'm looking at it through but it keeps shooting out of my mouth because it's plastic and it's curved, and it just won't stay. So finally, I figure I have to use my left hand, and I read about 2 numbers maybe at a time, and I've got to type them in. And they're all mixed up with letters, and they're all capitals, which means you can't just type them. You have to keep switching the key back and forth, and so I keep making mistakes as I'm doing it. So anyway, I finally get this in, and I hit enter. And Santosh says, thank you, could you please hold now? So my arm is getting really tired, and I'm having nightmares about the monitor going black again while I'm holding this in. And he comes back after a while, and he proceeds to tell me that I had bought a subscription for Word. I hadn't actually bought it. And it is expired, and would I now like to renew it for the low price of $99 a year? So I questioned this, typing, and now I'm not using caps anymore, no punctuation. I'm not even spacing between the words, okay? And he gets it, but he just reiterates the same thing. So I stop chatting with Santosh, and I just let the monitor go blank. And I sit there for a while, breathing deep, considering throwing my computer through the back window. And I look at the package on the key card that I had, and actually in really little teeny tiny letters, it says 1-year subscription. So then I start to wonder, what was this all about? What I just went through, because I know that everything happens to us happens for a reason, and it doesn't just randomly occur, because this is the waking dream, okay? It has meaning because this is Earth School. And I so believe in the inherent meaning of everything that I can be driving down the highway and a bug will hit my windshield, and I will ask what kind of bug, where it hit my windshield, and what was I thinking at the time that bug hit my windshield. Because I believe we get messages. I might get a little carried away, but some of you can relate, and I know that. So I figured the lesson wasn't just random cruelty. Was it patience? Well, you know, I've worked on patience. I'm actually quite patient. So, except with technology. I'm really patient with people, okay? But when technology gets in the way, my patience maybe goes down a little bit. And so I start wondering about how I interacted with Santosh, you know? And at one point in there, I have to tell you, I actually stopped as I was still holding the cord up, and he was looking for my key card number, and I typed in "thank you for helping me," because I realized I was being a little short, and maybe he could actually feel it, you know, over the wires. He might feel it. So I'm thinking about this, and I decide that it was really about not projecting your frustration and your anger on other people who may just be passing by, or it may be their job, like this person who was sitting in India probably typing somewhere. And I'm thinking, do I walk my talk? You know, and I did thank him before he delivered the final death blow to our chat, and I kind of hung up on him in a way, because I let the monitor go blank. I don't know if he felt it, because I hung up on my end anyway, because the monitor went black. So I wiggle the cord again, and I get it going again, and the monitor comes back up. And I noticed that I never ended our conversation, because I just let the monitor go blank. But Santosh isn't actually there anymore. Now they're asking, how was your experience with us? So I took a really deep breath, and I gave Santosh a good review, as much as I could with one hand, left-handed, and no spaces and punctuation, so they probably just thought I was crazy. Anyway, so now I really have to leave the house. I've got to get out of the house, because my blood pressure is up, my heart is, and I'm like breathing shallowly. And so I go to the park, and I'm sitting in my car, and I'm relaxing, and I'm writing in my journal, because I always process everything in my journal. Okay, write everything down. I figure out my lessons, and as I'm sitting there and I'm writing what happened, I sort of hear this voice in my head. Now, I don't actually hear it, but you maybe have had this experience where this voice comes to me, and you know, I went to Sunday school when I was a kid, but I really don't quote the Bible. I mean, really, I'm not that familiar with it, but I do remember this that came up. And actually, it was from Genesis, and it popped into my head, and I almost laughed because it was so strange. It's like, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And I realized that I spoke to God today. I spoke to God. And his name was Santosh. And then I realized my frustration with Santosh was not so much him, really, and not even so much what was going on, but how we had to communicate with one another. Because it wasn't straightforward. We had to do all this jumping through hoops to communicate. And that's how I want to hear God. You know, when I'm meditating or I'm praying, I want to hear that voice in capital letters. You know, the one that sounds like Chris Van Cleave? Those people, you know? That deep voice. This is God speaking. You know, but very often you don't hear that voice. And you just, you know, he communicates, he, she, The Great Spirit communicates in kind of rather subtle ways, and we have to pay attention so we don't miss it. And sometimes God speaks through our fellow travelers, like Santosh. Remember that movie Bruce Almighty with Jim Carrey? Many of you have probably seen it. And God was a janitor. And he was really wise, and he was witty and reassuring, kind of really low-key and unassuming. And it makes you wonder, if you ran into this person, it's somebody we might tend to overlook. The wisdom that they might have, or the message they might have for us, or then we might think they don't have too much to offer. Which brings me to my second story, which I call The Bag Lady, and this is a short story. So one day I was driving down Atlantic Avenue, and my son had just gotten his learner's permit, and he was 16. And I don't know how many of you have been through this. So in my head, as I'm driving down Atlantic Avenue, I'm by myself, and I'm thinking about, what would I do if I'm driving? How am I going to teach him to drive? What if here I'm sitting in the seat over here, and he's got full control, and I don't have a brake, and I don't have the steering wheel, and he drives crazy. He does something crazy because he doesn't know yet what he's doing. Now, how do I respond without getting him defensive? Okay, because I don't want to make him defensive. And so this is going through my head, and I'm picturing all the ways he could drive crazy as I'm going down the street. And I pass what looks like a homeless person, a lady, standing on the corner of 34th and Atlantic Avenue. And she's not trying to cross, she's just standing there. And she's got a bunch of bags around her. And as I'm thinking this, and I'm driving down, I just glance over her direction, and she looks me right in the eye. And I can see her. And she does this. Drive crazy. And I realize she heard me. How did she hear me? Because sometimes God is a bag lady. And at that moment, I was being told to watch my thoughts. Because my thoughts are very powerful. And what you're imagining in your mind, and those fear thoughts, you're helping to create. So my third story is called, Can You Hear Me Now? This is known in our family as the DQ incident. David's laughing. Maybe 3 or so months ago, when I started meditating really, really regular and being very disciplined, I got compelled to suddenly change all my eating habits. And it wasn't really to lose weight. I just suddenly felt like, I had to get organic stuff, and I couldn't eat this, and no more high fructose corn syrup, no more sugar, no more caffeine. I mean, it was really extreme, and even I was going, this is really extreme. Where is this coming from? But I was following it. So, but the one thing that we would do was David and I sometimes on our way home would stop at Dairy Queen. And I would get the smallest chocolate ice cream cone that you can get. Because I knew that if once in a while I didn't have a treat, I was going to overdose someday at Dunkin' Donuts, and you would find me in a ditch covered with colored sprinkles and powdered sugar somewhere. So this was my one little treat that I had. So one day I was coming home, and David wasn't with me. And there's a big intersection at Dam Neck and General Booth Boulevard, and there's the Dairy Queen that we go to. And I got stuck in a lot of traffic. I don't know what happened, but I was stuck there for longer than usual. And I'm looking at the Dairy Queen, and in my head I'm thinking, if David were with me, we would be stopping at Dairy Queen. And I'm thinking, this probably is not a good thing to be doing. I'm doing all this healthy stuff. I don't know what they put in Dairy Queen. I never looked it up. I really don't know, and I don't really know if I should be doing this. And I hear this voice. And it's pretty loud, but I can't understand what it said. And I'm looking around, and I thought, is that my phone? I have all my windows open because it was a nicer day. But it sounds like it's coming from my car. And so I'm looking around, I think, did I butt dial somebody where my phone is on? And I find my phone sitting on the seat, but it's not on. And I know I heard something. And then I hear it again. And it's very loud, and it sounds like this. Move away from the Dairy Queen. And I'm looking around, because now I heard it. And I'm looking around, and it sounds like someone on a megaphone, a bullhorn. And I'm seeing people stand at the Dairy Queen outside, and they're like totally not turning their heads. They look totally unconcerned, and I'm thinking, is there emergency? Are they robbing Dairy Queen? What is going on? While I'm thinking this, I hear it again. Move away from the Dairy Queen! And you know, of course, I knew what I was just thinking. I was thinking, this is probably really a bad idea to keep going to Dairy Queen. And you know, I found out sometimes God has a megaphone. And you know, sometimes we are God. Because sometimes we are the ones that say something to somebody at just the right time, and it's just what they want to hear. It's just what they need to hear. So be very careful what you say, because you are God speaking as well. So you know, that day that I spent all that time looking for my lost word, I started the day out asking what God wanted me to speak about on Sunday. And I sat outside my front yard because I like to work outside. And I'm working on different ideas, you know, things that I think God wants me to talk about. And then I got really hot, and I went inside, and I got on the computer. And then I met Santosh, because God's in tech support. Thank you. I want to do something before we stop really quick. Many of you people know Jean Reeder. How many people know Jean? Okay, Jean is a fellowship person from way back. Jean is in Washington. And I love Jean. She's one of my best friends. And this is her spiritual family. And I told her she could watch us on YouTube. So on 3, I want you to yell, I love you, Jean. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I love you, Jean! Thank you. Love you, Jean.